So this is my friend Z. This is our third podcast. This one is going to be all about dating. How are you, Z?
I am a 10 today. I am a 10. How are you?
I am a solid nine. I'm a little tired, but I'm pretty good. This podcast is all about dating, which I'm excited for because I feel like a lot of people are struggling now, both men and women. Both sides are struggling, and I'm excited, especially excited because it's a man and a woman speaking, so I feel like the listener gets to hear both perspectives. And Z is, both Z and I are very open-minded people, so I feel like we're gonna have an actual productive conversation. Also, I live in New York and she lives in Florida, so I feel like you might get like a little bit like, what is it like dating in New York? What is it like dating in Florida, in Miami? I'm excited.
Excited as well.
All right, so let's start with your experiences as far as dating goes, Z. I don't know if you want to give your age, it's up to you, or your status, but tell us what your experience is like with dating.
I would love to share my social location. And in the terms of psychology, social location is what you just mentioned, my age, my gender, and everything. So it's very important for me to do share my social location because I feel like a lot of us believe that, oh, like, this notion of how you shouldn't judge people by its cover, but we live in a prejudiced society and people are
Yeah.
always, people are looking at you. And the
Yeah.
first thing you know, believe it or not, they're already judging you, you
Yeah.
know, and that's something that we do as humans very quickly, unconsciously. So I am 29. I'm going to be 30 this year. I am single. I've been single for 6 years. I'm a Latina. I live here in Miami. And I actually was born here in Miami and I was raised by immigrant parents. So yeah, that is my social location. I'm a woman. And yeah.
So thank you for sharing all that. I wasn't sure like what you were comfortable with sharing. So something stuck out to me, which is you said you've been single for 6 years, which is a long time to be single. And the 20s is when people I feel like date the most. So I'm wondering what's going on. Why are you single for 6 years?
So I think we should rephrase the, I think really it's more like it's not the why I have been single for 6 years. It's more that I've chosen to be single. So it's a huge difference.
Sure.
And so I've chosen to be single mainly because I truly believe that in order for you to not devour, but devote yourself to someone else, it's very important that you go through a phase of getting to know who you are as a person. And let's just say that getting to know who you are and who you are is going to be like a lifelong journey. Who you are, where you were yesterday, is going to change. You're not going to be the same person.
Mhm.
So I really believe that I've chosen to be single, one, because I love, love, love to explore myself. And the more I explore myself, the more I'm choosing to devote my own self and I'm learning how to offer myself unconditional love. And by doing this action of exploring myself, of looking at myself, I'm like, you have good things, you have. I don't like to say good or bad, not labeling, but there's
Mhm.
certain strengths, there's certain weaknesses to my personality. And the more I explore myself, the more I'm ready to welcome and to invite a masculine man into my life because now I know how I can like I put myself on a scale and I know these are my strengths, these are my weaknesses. I'm already aware of how I am as a woman, which makes it more easier to enjoy sharing with a masculine man. And so when I hear when I I kind of when I hear someone says why you have been single for 6 years, it almost seems like a bad thing.
Mhm.
And to me, the way I associate that question, it almost feels like what is wrong with that? There's no such thing as it being a bad thing. I think it's a choice, and I think that if we just start, leaning into others with more like, tell me more why you've chosen to be this way instead of like, I've been wanting to find a husband or a
Mhm.
marriage, and
Mhm.
this, and it changes, the experience and how that person is being approached. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it makes perfect sense because it depends on the person, right? Like you've clearly been chose to be single for 6 years, and there are some people, both men and women, who literally like they can't find a date or they can't find a real like life-term partner, lifelong partner. So and it's really sad. So I would love to know like what your experiences is like because I know obviously you've been on dates, I think recently. So I'd love to know like your experiences. What is it like? How have what's it been like out there?
Yeah, so I'm glad you asked that question to me because I know for a fact that there are a lot of individuals out there who are wanting to find love and who are eager to want to share with someone, and grow with someone. So I feel for these individuals. Um, and if I can say anything to these individuals, I would start by saying, have you found ways to cultivate love and joy in your life? And what are those ways? And have they been working, right?
Hmm.
So leading back to your question, because I have been single for 6 years, I've been able to find ways that cultivate love and joy and excitement in my life. And by finding those ways of doing that, now I look at dating from a more, ooh, play, curiosity. Let me explore someone's different perspective. Let me explore how my body feels too when I'm now starting to date men. Because there is a part of feeling getting in tune with yourself when you're dating. Dating isn't just about like, getting to know the other person. Dating is also about getting to know how you are now and how you're
Sure.
going to be responding when you're
Hmm.
with someone else.
Yep.
Because it's easier to be alone and it's easier to kind of explore yourself because it's your comfort zone. But when you actually have to go out and date, that's when you start to realize, oh, wow, like I notice this person may cause a little bit of anxiety in me, or this person may
Hmm.
cause a little bit of nervousness in me, and like the confusion, the living in my head, like all of those things begin to play out and they begin to come out when you actually start dating. So I think right now I'm approaching dating from a more curiosity, more playful perspective, rather as in like um, a desperate need of like I need this person to be with me or I need this person to like me. I don't need this person to like me. I like me,
All
but I
right.
want to know this person.
So it sounds like you're dating more to learn yourself than anything else.
And to learn myself, but also to learn to actually be present with someone else, um, on top of being not abandoning myself. I
Hmm.
think a lot of people go into dating, and once they start dating, because they're desperate and they're needy, they abandon themselves. But the part of dating is to explore different options, but at the same time, while you're exploring those options, find a way to connect back to the self. Find a way to say, maybe I didn't like what this person said to me, or maybe I didn't like the way this person made me feel. How can I find that and get it back to connect it back to myself as a way for me to, now I can actually understand a different layer to my personality. Does
Hmm.
that make sense?
Yeah, so it sounds like you've been learning a lot. So do you want to tell us like I don't know if you want to share like any recent stories of you dating? Like, do you
Yeah,
want to
I
share
love
any?
it. I love
Yeah.
it. I love it. So, I truly believe that everything is energy. And when
Hmm.
you look at everything from like from life, from plants, from nature, right? Everything is a frequency. And it sounds sort of it's oversaturated. This thing is oversaturated because a lot of people say it now and it's become sort of like, oh, like, yeah, everything is energy. But if you really come to look at yourself from a perspective of like, if everything is energy, how am I cultivating myself in love so that I can actually put myself on a path where it's easier to attract love without having to be attached to it? And how I can describe this is my recent dating experience has been very playful, has been very fun, has been very challenging too,
Hmm.
because there's certain things, like I said, that I come back and I like, oh wow, mm, do you want to continue seeing this person? Does this person align with what you so finding my dating, looking at my dating experience has been more of a perception of enjoyment and curiosity and play because I've been able to do that with myself. And also, I started doing therapy myself, which I realized that, which is very interesting because when I started doing therapy, um, I started to attract people, men who were also doing therapy.
Wait,
And
when you
it,
say doing therapy, do you mean giving sessions? Or do you mean take?
I hired a psychotherapist. Like I
Okay,
wanted,
okay, gotcha,
because I've done a lot of inner work for myself and I've done a lot of inner work. I wanted someone to challenge me too, and I wanted to
gotcha.
understand different layers of me.
Okay.
And because I decided to go down this path of let me start to explore myself in different ways. Not like I'm in a bad position and I need to like get a therapist, but instead of let me explore certain things that are perhaps holding me back from love. And when I did that decision, I noticed I started to attract more high quality men into my life. And when I say high quality men, I mean men who are actually putting in the work as well, who are also seeing therapists. And I thought it was very interesting how, when I started to go, when I started doing therapy, I actually attracted someone who himself is also doing therapy.
Hmm.
So you see, it's sort of like an energy. It's sort of like a mirror. The universe will start to mirror back where you are on a frequency and on a state. So wherever you find yourself, you're going to start attracting people that are going to be sort of mirroring whatever you are doing or whatever you're working on. And it was a very interesting sort of aha moment. I'm like, oh my God, it's so weird that I just started doing therapy and I attracted someone who's also doing therapy. What is this saying? This is saying that the more I work in myself, the more I'm going to attract people who are working on themselves as well. It was very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we tend to attract what we are in certain ways, right? Like, they say that opposites attract, and sometimes that is true sometimes, but like I also notice that we tend to attract people who are on the same page as us, like if you're extremely ambitious, you're going to attract other people who are extremely ambitious. If you're into psychology, you're going to attract other people who are into psychology. So I'd love to know, I have so many different questions, but I'd love to know like okay, let's talk about green flags and red flags. So let's talk about like red flags first. Like what are some red flags that you see in men nowadays?
I would love to share some red flags. I can only share from my
Sure,
experience.
sure.
So I will only share the red flags that I've been able to quickly detect on. Um, First and foremost, I pay very close attention to the relationship that a man has with his mother, right?
Mm,
And how he
this is
speaks about his
interesting.
mother. Yeah. That's the first thing. Whenever I am getting to know someone, I love to talk a little bit more about how that person is towards and how he speaks about his mother. I know that growing up in a very loving family is a luxury. If you were a child and you grew up with parents who were very loving, that's a huge luxury. And I understand that a lot of people, me myself included, didn't grow up in that luxury.
Mhm.
So I also believe that understanding someone's childhood experiences is going to make it easier to see, have them been able to heal that aspect between their parents if they went through let's just say dysfunctional family. What are they doing currently right now to work on that? If there's any sort of um, no type of initiation of wanting to heal that inner child or wanting to explore that, that's automatically a red flag, because that tells me that that person is not willing to change. And change is inevitable. Change is part of human evolution. You're going to change with your partner. You're not going to be the same person with your partner. So if someone is not willing to explore that, that's a red flag to me already. So there was two things that I mentioned already. I don't know if you got to them. So obviously the relationship with his mother. The second thing is whether or not he did grow up in a dysfunctional family, and if he did, what is he doing to heal that aspect? And is he even putting in the work? If he's not, then that's a red flag for me.
So, you know, let's get a little hypothetical for a second. Let's say you're on a first date and a man says, my mom didn't treat me so well growing up. Like we don't really have a relationship. She didn't treat me well. I don't talk to mom. What is
Perfect.
what's going on in your head?
So the first thing that I would give is to honor that, to honor his
Mhm.
feelings and to honor the fact that perhaps there is a reason why he doesn't want to talk to mom.
Mhm.
So now I want to explore that with him and say, okay, so do you know the reason as to why you don't want to talk to God? And has that been serving you in your higher purpose as a man? Has that been helping you? And whatever question, whether he says, yes, I've been able to like work on that for myself, and even though I don't choose to talk to mom, I have forgiven mom, and I'm learning to forgive mom. That already tells me that that person has initiation of wanting to change. But if for instance, like, I don't talk to mom, and I can tell that they hold so much anger, resentment, and just speak so bad, that's a red flag.
Mm.
It's not
What if
ready
she
for
abused him though? What if she really abused him?
Yeah, but it's the same thing. I don't think you're understanding what I'm saying. What I'm saying is like, um, if a guy chooses to not talk to his mom,
Hmm.
I wouldn't consider the fact that that's a red flag.
Hmm. Hmm.
What I consider a red flag is if a man um, has, understands what happened with his mom and
Hmm.
has been putting in the work to actually heal that for
Hmm.
himself. If he dismisses that or doesn't even want to go there and is not doing anything to heal that, then
Hmm.
that would be considered more of a red flag to me, because then that tells me that person hasn't been exploring that, or perhaps needs a little bit more work on healing that inner child.
Hmm.
That would be a red flag. You get
Yeah.
what I'm saying? Dismissive of not wanting to explore that or work on himself. And if he, whatever he went through, whether it was child abuse, whether it was molestation, whether
Yeah.
all these very harsh topics,
Hmm.
um, there is these are very strong trauma experiences that a man, uh, first and foremost, a lot of men don't speak about, but
Hmm.
I think that it's necessary for men to, like, these type of men to go and seek for help, and if they're not making or seeking for help, then I wouldn't say it's a very difficult thing to say whether that's a red flag, because those are traumatic experiences. You get me?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't want to make anyone feel like they're not worthy because they went through something like that. So I don't think I would want to answer that, whether someone is a red because of something that they went through that was traumatic, whether or not that was a red flag or not. So I think I would hold back on that.
As long as they're doing something to grow and something to heal. That's what I'm hearing. Like as you can have you didn't have to have a great relationship as long as you're taking the time and effort to heal. Is that correct?
Yes, yes. And
Sure,
perhaps
sure.
perhaps the first time a man sits down with me and he shares that with me, um, that to me is a privilege that he was able to express himself with me and share something. Perhaps I'm someone that he has decided I'm probably the first person he's ever shared that with. And so, knowing this, I have to approach that man with love, even more love, because he probably lacked it. But I'm not going to abandon myself now and try to be his therapist and try to
Yeah.
be. Instead, I'm going to sort of allow him to guide him back to himself and say, well, has this been serving you? And what do you think is what do you think is how is this affecting you in your personal relationship? Those are the questions I would ask. Whether
Hmm.
it's like, I'm going to dismiss myself from this person, I'm never going to talk to this person again.
Yeah.
I don't carry myself like that as a woman. I truly believe that. men, especially in today's society, in this patriarchy society, it's very difficult for men to express themselves. And so when a man gets to express himself, I'm choosing to lean in without abandoning myself, but listen to him and not, automatically say, I'm going to run away from this guy. This guy has a lot of shit, But instead of perhaps maybe I'm put in his life for a reason, perhaps I'm going to tell him, hey, look, have you ever thought of considering doing therapy? Have you decided to, get into men communities or to explore male communities? There's so much out there now. There's so much out there.
Yeah, there is. So one thing I noticed about you, you're a very, very open-minded person. I heard you on Instagram talking the other day about how you find cognitive flexibility very sexy. And it's true, like, and the best example is politics, right? Like people are extremely closed-minded. They don't want to hear the other side. They just want to express their own opinions and they, go for like that gotcha moment. Not to go like to talk about politics, but the point is that I noticed that you're very, very open-minded. You're very cognitively flexible and you're a very deep thinker. Like you pay attention. Like when we talked about red flags, you kind of went psychological, right? You went like the psychological route. And I'm wondering, because we live in a very shallow world now where people, a lot of women say he has to be 6 feet, six figures, 6 inches, six pack, blah blah blah. Blah. And you're a very, very deep thinker. Like I can tell you're very psychologically intelligent, very deep thinker. So I'm wondering, like, what is your response to the woman who say he needs to be 6 feet, 6 inches, six figures? What is your response to those women?
How are you contributing as a woman for
Mhm.
you to demand all of that from a man? What are you contributing to his life? How are you carrying yourself as a woman? Because it's easier for you to ask for all of these things and not be that, you know?
No, I'm just
Plain,
laughing. Go ahead, keep going.
plain and simple. Plain and simple. It's some women are gonna probably say, "Oh, no, 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 no." Yes, when you are with someone, you have to contribute as well. It's not just like me, give me.
So do you think that it's fair for some women to demand those things?
I think for all righteous, you can demand anything. I'm not saying as a woman you shouldn't demand things. I have certain
Mhm,
demands myself,
mhm, mhm,
but the reason why I have those demands is because I am that. I know what I can bring to the
mhm,
table. I
mhm,
know how I carry myself as a woman. But I'm also not going to believe that someone out there is perfect and I'm gonna, like find the perfect guy because who's to say that when I find this perfect guy, I'm going to be happy or, love, love. It's very interesting. I'm reading a book right now that talks about love
mhm,
and how the society has defined love as a noun and it's a feeling, right? But love is more than just a feeling. Love is a devotion. Love is a choice. Love is not just affection. It's, a commitment. It's a bunch of things. So I think that because we grew up in a society that defines love that way, um, that has conditioned us to believe that love is like this feeling, but it's really not. Um, this author said that love is sort of the will of you to extend yourself, to nurture yourself, but also to nurture someone else. So it can either be, love can be within yourself and it can also be within someone else. But at the end of the day, it's a fucking choice. It's a choice that you choose to make. And to say that it's a feeling, we experience feelings every single day and they go coming in and out. There's
mhm,
more to love. So going back to your question, as far as whether it's okay for women to demand these things, I say demand anything you want.
mhm,
You're entitled to
mhm,
request whatever you want. You're entitled to like whatever you like,
mhm,
but also understand that you have to ask yourself, how am I contributing as a woman into this male's life?
mhm,
You know?
mhm. No, it's interesting. The only reason why I'm laughing is because I feel like a lot of people, like they don't really. Oh, cute dog, by the way.
Yeah, thank you.
Was there a question you want to ask me, Z?
Yeah, so I wanted to ask you, how have you learned to define love in your life, or how did you, as a little boy,
Hmm.
um, were sort of given, or how did you, at a young child, what was your take on love? How did you look at love
How did I look at love as a child?
as a child, and then how you started to look at love now as an adult?
So first of all, I love the question. I was blessed with amazing parents. Okay, like you said before, it is a blessing. Amazing mom, amazing dad. They weren't perfect, but they were definitely great parents and still are. They're like my best friends today. I see them 5 to 6 days a week. I understand that it's a privilege, like you said. I understand that it was just pure luck. I won the lottery when it comes to parents. They're still together after 44 years, still together, still in love. So I think I have a pretty healthy view on love. My mom showed me all the love in the world, and she still does. And I'm starting to tear now, even just talking about it. And it's such a flex for me to when I meet a new woman and tell them like my parents are still together. Like it feels good to say that and to know that. But yeah, I mean, I've heard different definitions of the word love. Have you seen Frozen?
No,
Oh, you
but
never seen Frozen?
yeah, no, I haven't. But
So
I'm
the,
curious as
the
to how you define love. But yeah, tell me about Frozen.
Yes. So the snowman defined it as something like love is putting someone else before yourself, which I really, really love that definition. Also, another figure, I don't know if I want to say his name because a lot of people don't like him, but anyway, Jordan Peterson, he said, love is the desire to flourish. And I really like that definition. Like love, like when you love someone, you desire for them to flourish. You desire for them to grow and to be happy. So I really like that definition of love.
I love
Um,
that one. The
yeah,
Frozen one, I don't really like that much.
really. So I'd
Yeah,
love to know why.
because you cannot, what was it again? What rephrase? What Frozen
Love
was?
is putting someone else before yourself, I think.
Yeah,
Something
love
like
is
that.
putting someone else before
Mm-hmm.
yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I think I think that's just shows a part of it, but can be very dangerous because
Mm.
a lot of people have found themselves putting someone else before themselves, abandoning themselves, and they actually end up having very traumatic
Yeah.
experiences because they did that and they abandoned themselves. So I wouldn't say that it's a bad definition. I see it's
Mm-hmm.
just a part of it, but if I
Incomplete.
incomplete, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, I do tend to like the second definition more,
I
the
love the
desire to
second one.
flourish. Yeah, because when you love someone, you do desire for them to flourish. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Um, so we talked about the red flag. Just for fun, do you want to give one more red flag
Yeah,
just for
no,
fun?
I had a couple more red flags. Um,
You give as many as you want.
well, first and foremost, like we were talking about someone who's very open-minded. I think open-minded is a really, really good green flag.
Mm-hmm.
Close-mindedness is a red flag to me. When I'm sitting down with someone and if they're very stubborn in their way of thinking, that's going to say a lot when I am in a relationship with this person.
Hmm.
If they're coming up with a decision or something's happening, and that person is stubborn in his way of thinking, how are we going to grow?
Yeah, yeah.
How are we going to be able to move on from something or come up with a decision? So, closed-minded is a very red flag to me. Another red flag is someone who, it sounds a little controversy, but someone who does not take care of his body, who
Sure,
is not nurturing his body.
sure.
I think that health is a choice too. Love is a choice, health is a choice. So every day you have a choice to decide how you are going to choose to love your body. It's a value to me to love my body. And because I've chosen to love my body, I'm trying to find so many ways to be healthy. And if someone is going to come into my life and they're going to influence me in perhaps ways that I'm going to let go of that health, or perhaps not say make me change, but I think influence is the right word, because believe it or not, your partner influences you, because there's a funny saying that says, "Tell me who you hang around with, and I'll tell you who you become." It's
I
true.
love that quote. That's from Dan Pena, I think, something.
I believe so,
I love
but
that quote. Yeah.
It's true. It's true. There's actually it's a research actually done. There's a bunch of researches done talking about how if you want to convince a little boy to eat something, you can't tell him go eat that.
Yep.
You know, don't tell him
Hmm.
eat this, eat this.
Hmm.
Put him at a table where there's a bunch of other little boys that are perhaps older than him, 2 to 3 years older than
Hmm.
him.
Hmm.
They're all eating what he doesn't want to eat. I guarantee you that little boy is going to eat. We're influenced unconsciously. Same as when we look at someone who's skillful. I think I don't know exactly where this came from, but if you think about it, we're highly influenced at all times when you're trying to learn something, right? Like for instance, me, I love pole dancing or I love pole,
Hmm.
and I'm not going to look at a woman who is, let's just say, not the best. I want to look at the best and the best person that's competing in sports or something. So we're always looking and being influenced by people. So your partner essentially will influence you on a unconscious level. So knowing this, if I have a partner that is not taking care of his body, that is not working out, that is not eating healthy, that's a red flag to me in my experience, because that means that his likely chances of getting sick as we get older increase.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so now we can't control whether or not one person is going to be here for the rest of our lives.
Hmm.
What we can control is how are we contributing to our bodies and how are we meeting with our bodies. So health and wellness is a big green flag to me. And when I do sit down with a potential partner, I consider that a red flag, whether or not he's choosing to show up for himself. And another thing that I would mention is emotional intelligence and emotional capacity are two different things, right? I was very driven by emotional intelligence. I myself consider myself a very emotionally intelligent person, but there's a
Hmm.
difference between emotional intelligence and emotional capacity. You can be emotionally intelligent all day long, but you doesn't necessarily mean that you have the capacity to love,
Mm.
to offer that emotion.
Mm.
So emotional capacity is if someone is not willing to offer emotional capacity to me, that's a red fucking flag. Sorry if I had to curse, but it's
Well,
something.
the fact that you curse shows me that there's like you're very like passionate about this.
Yeah, and I've had to also walk away from a lot of men who have been unable to offer emotional capacity. And it's been a very interesting thing, but also like I can't, like I think emotional capacity is very important, and society conditions men to be cold-hearted or, this masculine red pill shit that, that a lot of men watch. Yeah, you're not gonna get women that way.
By the
I,
way, I know you're in Miami. Just yesterday, Andrew Tate got arrested, I heard in
I
Miami.
saw,
Yeah.
I saw,
Were you
I
like this? Were you like this when you got
uh,
arrested?
there were certain perspectives that I found very interesting about him,
Hmm.
very interesting perspectives um, that challenged me, that made me feel a little like, I don't know. But I understand where it comes from. And yeah, I considered this, I don't have really anything to say about the man, but yeah, it just shows you the power of how we have to be very selective for who we choose to consume information
No,
because
I'd love to talk about what perspectives you agreed with and what you disagreed with.
I love the fact that like he has a way of I don't know much about what he was like a lot of things because I really don't watch so much of his stuff, but I love that he has um this sort of ability to say that men should protect,
Mm. And provide.
and provide and I love that. I agree. Men should protect, should provide. But not necessarily it can be provide can be many things. It doesn't necessarily mean like finance and stuff like that. We're living in different times now. A lot of women have financial independence. And I think a lot of women now are not looking for that sort of provide like true quality women are not looking for to be provided in that sense, but instead to meet ourselves in in an emotional, dance, not like provide me with finances, but meet me on an emotional level. So yeah, I believe in his take, but I don't like how, not that I like his some of his perspectives challenge me when he refers women as modest and modesty and how he has a huge influence on young kids, on young boys,
Mhm.
a lot of young boys who don't have parents, or a lot of young boys who have probably mommy issues are listening to these type of men,
Mhm.
and that is contributing to a lot of close-mindedness and toxic masculinity. you know I saw something so beautiful, a video of a mother dancing in front of her little boy, and she was just
Mhm.
dancing, and her little boy,
Mhm.
the little baby, was just looking at his mom dance, and she said, the only way you're going to teach a man how to be, to not judge women, to not you know to their projection on women and their relationship towards women, is through a mother figure. And not saying a father figure is not bad.
Mhm.
Both parents are huge important factors
Yeah.
to a
Yeah.
child,
Mhm.
but you know, a little boy looks up to his mom, it's a different relationship. And so when the mother is dancing in front of the little boy and she feels confident, and she's, it's so the little boy's like, Mom, I love the way you dance. I thought that was so cute, because it was like, that's teaching a child to not judge women or objectifying women for how they look, but
Mhm.
instead of how they express themselves, how comfortable they are in their bodies. That's why culture influences a lot of, and has influenced a lot of this, whether it's dating dynamics, whether it's how we look at the opposite sex, So yeah, I think I answered a lot of red flags, and I think I'm shifting off from a
No, no,
conversation.
it's okay. I mean, I asked a lot of questions, and honestly, I have so many more because this topic, it's a topic
Okay,
that,
so what is one thing that is calling you to ask me without you even having to look down at the paper? What is one thing that you really, really has been in you that you've been wanting to ask, or you're curious to learn? Or the
well,
person
we talked about this in my last podcast, and we it was only for like 2 or 3 minutes, and I would love to talk more about it now, which is the fear of men. Do you remember that?
Mhm.
We were talking about how a lot of women are scared of men, how a lot of about like the bear and the man, a lot of women choose the bear. Do you know about that? So
No,
there's this
I'm so
question.
sorry, but yeah, damn, I'm so out of the radar. What
No,
is
no,
this
it's
weird
okay.
thing?
So there's this question that went viral, which is, would you rather be in the woods with a bear or a man? And a lot of women chose bear. Basically saying like, I'm so scared of men. Men are so dangerous that I'd rather be in the woods with a bear."
Was this like a statistic or a study done, or what
I
is?
mean, it's kind of like a question that just went viral on social media. Um,
You can't, there's so much aspects to women, the type of women who are answering that.
I'd love to hear your perspective on that.
Yeah, the first thing that comes in mind is, what type of women have gone through some traumatic experience, or um, how absent the father figure, or the men,
Mhm.
and their experiences with men. So I think, yeah, I think it's a very, I wouldn't say that the analogy is wrong or bad. It's more like, who are these women and what have they experienced? Because, as humans, we relate, and we're going to filter out what best relates to our belief systems and our experiences.
Mhm.
So, I have compassion for those women that said that. Um, because it can clearly tell you that these women have been through an experience where they are afraid of men.
Yeah. I mean, if a woman tells me that she'd rather be in the woods with a bear, I would probably assume that she probably has some traumatic experience, like you said, with a man, maybe, SA, whatever the case. I know the statistics. I think it's one third of women re report SA in their life, and it's such a sad dynamic because it makes dating so much harder, like if women can't trust men, then now women are scared to go on dates. And then even there's so many good men who are sitting around like, I'm a good guy. And I think it's really difficult. So I would love to share my experience as a man, dating around. So I feel like every time I meet a woman, I have to prove that I'm not a serial killer, that I'm not a rapist. Like I have to go through that process every time of like, proving that I'm a good guy. And it's not their fault. Like they don't know who I am. They don't know that I'm not dangerous. And it's such a frustrating experience for both sides because it's like the women don't know who to trust. And then the men know that they're good men and they kind of like go through this process of like, you know what I mean?
Why do you think you're attracting these type of women?
Well, I mean, I think so there's someone okay, not every single woman that I went and date with is afraid of men, but some are. And
My question to you is, how have you attracted these women?
how have I attracted women who are afraid of men?
Oh, yeah, yes, like have you met these women in person? Have you met these women online? Give me a little bit of a background here.
Sure. So right now I don't really date around right now. I've mostly focused on my podcast, but from age 29 to 33, those specific years, I was dating around. I met a lot of them online. I met a lot of them on Instagram. And yeah, like some would tell me like, sorry, but I don't date men from online and that's okay. And then there's a few that I went on a date with and then I mean, like I said, some of them, were very slow to trust men, and I can't blame them. Like if you're like to be completely honest, I'm slow to trust women, to be honest. Like that's just what I've been through. I've learned from my experiences to be slow to trust women. So like it's this sort of like you can't blame them.
You just gave me a beautiful, like a layer to your personality.
Sure.
You said you're slow to trust women.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Why do you think that?
Because everything I've been through, I've been through so much lying, so much like pretending to care more about me than they actually did. Like a lot of like trying to use me for money or using me for attention, just a lot of lying and pretending. And I would love to like be in the chair for a second because you're like you put on the therapy hat and that's fine with me.
Mhm. So let me ask you, because you mentioned a lot of lying and a lot of
Pretending.
deceitfulness and pretending and manipulation
Sure.
involved.
Uh-huh.
Um, what part of you, uh, what part of you did you ignore when you started to, um, let's just say you started to get to know someone and you realize, so you knew something was off, right? But you continued the dynamic.
Later on, I knew something was off. Not in the beginning.
So how was your response to that when you knew something was off?
You're so good at asking questions. I swear to God, you're so good at asking questions. What was my response to
To
their?
knowing that there was something off. How did you if we can go a little back to that experience, take me through that experience, right?
Okay, I'll give you one example. So I won't say her name, but her nickname was Fifi. Okay, that was her nickname, and she lived in New Jersey. And we were talking on Instagram, and we hit it off. And we were talking, and we were FaceTiming, and we were just like texting all day. And then one day we FaceTime for 3 hours and it was really nice and we were talking and it was just like we clicked super, super well. She was single, I was single. And then we eventually reached this point where it's like, all right, let's we came to this sort of weird agreement when we were gonna start dating in April. Like we were gonna meet up and start dating in April. At the time, I think it was February, right? And then one day, completely out of nowhere, like no fighting. She blocks me. No fighting, no arguing, like blocks my number, blocks my Instagram, just blocks me. So I'm like super confused. Everything was going well. And then I message her on my other Instagram account. I'm like, what happened? And she's like, and then she answered, this was like, I think it was like 2 months later. And she was like, well, to be completely honest, like I just got really nervous. Like I was nervous and things were getting serious and I was nervous. And it was just like the lack of transparency just pissed me off. And then so then after that, we started talking again for like I think it was like a day or two. And then she blocks me again. She blocks me again completely out of nowhere, no arguing. And then I hit her up on my other Instagram, like what happened? Like what's going on? She's like, and then she says this exactly. She says, I'm in a fuck men phase. I don't want to talk to anybody right now. And I'm not saying that she didn't like me before, but just like the lack of transparency and the blocking me out of nowhere and the lack of explanations, like it was very traumatizing for me. Like even though there was no like physical assault or anything, like the way that it just changed my psyche and the way that it made me go like, okay, I need to trust women less. Like I gotta slow it down. You know what I
So,
mean?
so what was lack of transparency here?
She didn't explain to me why, like she just blocked me out of nowhere twice. And then she explained to me like later on after I messaged her like later on. But like she
Okay, so, but wouldn't you say that a part of her was transparent by blocking you and not, doesn't that already tell you that perhaps that person is not willing to invest in you? So,
but don't you think that she should have said something like, "Hey, just to be honest, like I'm nervous right now." Like, don't you think that's a lack of transparency?
um, you got to understand that people will only give you what they give to themselves. And that was a
Okay.
very difficult thing for me to do.
Okay.
Very difficult for me um, to realize that, to realize that it's no one's obligation to give me an explanation, right?
But that's traumatizing though. Like it wouldn't if a man just blocked you out of nowhere, wouldn't you be like kind of mad at him?
No, that's the answer I needed. That already is what I need to know about that person. Whether or not that person is interested, whether or not that person's invested. I think that that's
Hmm.
actually it's traumatizing as to how you choose to perceive that experience.
Hmm.
Um, if a man blocks me,
Hmm.
which has happened to me, in
Sure,
fact,
sure.
I'll share this with you.
Uh-huh.
There was this gentleman who I attracted, and he was a very, let's just say, super great conversation.
Hmm.
He had just finished getting out of a relationship with someone for a year,
Hmm.
and he wasn't really in. Then after that, I think after a date, I noticed that he kind of withdrawed and he kind of started to hold himself back. The answers are there. We just choose
Hmm.
to ignore the answers
Hmm.
because we want a part of a part of us wants to get an explanation. A part of us wants to
Yeah, I
get that,
definitely want an explanation.
and you should honor that.
Uh-huh.
But in this case, the explanation has already been given through someone's actions.
Yeah.
Actions speak louder than words, right? So then it's a matter of, why do I continue to go after a person who is not giving me what I need? It's a waste of time. And not
Yeah.
only that, it's actually traumatizing me even
Yeah.
more. And I'm choosing myself to do that. So I go back to my experience, right? Because it's sort of like the same with you.
Hmm.
He just removes me and like removes me from his friend list out of
Hmm.
nowhere.
Hmm.
And I thought, oh, like, what did I do? Like, I'm a woman that is very, I try to be as present and as try to be as compassionate around this man. And he just
Hmm.
chose to do that out of nowhere with no explanation. So
Yeah.
instead of seeing it from him and saying, what the hell is wrong with this guy?
Yeah.
I asked myself, now it's up to me whether or not I choose to engage with this type of person, because clearly he's telling me that he probably got scared and probably chose to withdraw and probably
Mhm.
chose to remove me and doesn't want to see me. And I have to be okay with that. I have to sit with that rejection. I have to sit with that person not wanting to be with me. And it doesn't feel good. So
Not
when
at all.
part of our part of us as little, like we want to know why.
Yeah,
We
exactly.
know at the end of the day, we know why.
Hmm.
It's the actions are telling you. The action is telling you. The person doesn't have to say anything to you. They're showing you through their actions.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
why would you go and listen to someone's words? Because their words are not aligning with their actions. It's pointless to go and listen to someone, oh, well, because I wanted this and because I want, yeah, okay. But what are your actions showing me? Your actions showing me clearly that you're not ready in a relationship and that you don't respect me. So why should I go and ask and demand for an explanation when your actions are giving me the answers that I need? So perhaps there's a part of you, Chris, that um, you're choosing to see as a lack of transparency,
Hmm.
but the actions are displaying to you what type of woman she was.
Yeah, so at the time I was 32, I believe. We were the same age. Um, Now I'm just so much more wise than I was before because this was really the first time this ever happened to me. And I feel like the first time is the hardest because when it happens the second time, the third time, it's like, all right, I've been through this before. I know what this is. But the first time, it's like, what's going on? Like, I was just so confused, you know? So I feel like if it would happen today, I'd be a lot more like, okay, I get it. I've been through this before. Like, I know what's going on. Exactly. Like, vibe. But the first time, it's like, I was just so
And,
confused. You know what I mean?
and look, I'm not telling you that you
Yeah.
shouldn't have felt that way, or
Mhm.
that, Chris, like, what are you doing? Like, I'm a senior. You have all honored to have feel confused. You
Mhm.
have all reason, and I validate how you feel. You have all reason to be angry. You have all reason to be confused. You have all reason to demand answers.
Mhm.
But going back, what is demanding an answer to a question going to do for you if their actions will continue to do the same thing?
Yeah.
Like, let's say you went back to her, right?
Today, you mean today?
Oh, like back to the scenario,
When
right?
I was 32? Okay.
Yeah. Let's say
Okay.
you go back to her and you said she had, first and foremost, she had already given you, the first time she did that, you went and you approached her, she gave you an answer that did not align with her actions,
Sure.
right?
Sure. Uh-huh.
So it's no longer she's confusing me. It's now I'm putting myself in a position where I am choosing to be with someone that confuses me, and I have to take responsibility that I'm
Hmm.
choosing to be in that position. It's not about
Hmm.
the other person.
Hmm.
Second, you go back again. She gives you an answer. Her actions are still confusing you. So the question really comes down to, why do you continue to put yourself in a position where someone is choosing to confuse you and then saying that it's that person doing that, yet you're making the choice of putting yourself there?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, like today I would respond very differently. At the time, I didn't know how to respond. Like I was extremely confused. I would speak to my female friends about it. Like at the time, I was just I didn't know I didn't have the wisdom that I have today. Like now it's like, okay, I know what's going on. I'm not even gonna mess like today I wouldn't even message her again. But at the time, I didn't have that wisdom. And this is why I feel like so bad for like younger people because they don't know what's going on. Like when someone acts funny, when someone does that sort of things, like people in the 20s or even 30s, like they don't know what's going on. Whereas like now, like I've been through so much where it's like I know I know what's happening now. You know what I mean?
So what is happening?
I mean, what happened was she got scared and her anxiety kicked in and she just wasn't ready for something serious. And that was that. I think because that's what she told me and that's what I think happened. And I mean, at this point, it's like the answers are much more, they come to me much more fast now. You know what I mean?
If you find yourself in a situation like that where you talk to someone, you're very interested in that person, then that person blocks you today, what would you do?
I would never speak to them again. And that's growth. That's growth, right? And I think like I had to go through that experience to get the wisdom that I have today and to, have these podcasts. But I have to ask, how are we on time? Like, are you good? Like, do you want to
I
keep
can
going?
do a good 30 more minutes and then we
Okay,
can.
okay. So I have a million questions. Do you have any questions or do you want me to ask a question?
No, I just I want to know if you're okay with moving on to the other subject. I know that was very vulnerable of you to share. Um,
It was.
and I'm first and foremost grateful that you shared that with me,
Yeah, yeah.
as you felt safe to share that with me. Um, and I know how that feels because, like I said, I found myself in that position
Uh-huh.
before. And rejection isn't easy, and
Confusion isn't easy.
rejection isn't easy, but confusion is a sign. Confusion is assigned already. When you're confused around someone, all right, that's a red flag, you know? Confusion is uh your mind and your body not being aligned. Your mind is saying one thing, but your body knows what's good for you.
Hmm.
So when we find ourselves in situations where someone is confusing us, we first look at that as an opportunity to get to see what's going on with the other person. And then if we see what's going on with the other person, we start to understand, well, this person, da 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 da. But if they're not willing to meet us there with that confusion and say, okay, let me work on that, let me like work with this with you, then I think that's a sign that shows you that that person is not ready to even, devote themselves to a relationship or a connection with you.
Yeah.
And
And I really wish I had that wisdom before, because it would have been much less confusing. But now I have that wisdom, which is the good part. So I want to share with you one of my favorite quotes of all time, and you might disagree with it.
hmm,
And it's one of those quotes that like some people agree with, some people disagree with. It's actually from Warren Buffett. You know who Warren Buffett is, right? The billionaire. So, and like I don't even know like why he was talking about dating. But what he said in one of his YouTube videos, he goes, it's not about who's funny and smart and who's handsome. It's about who has low expectations. And a
hmm.
lot of people disagree with that. I strongly agree with it. You're allowed to push back. Let me know what you think about that quote. But yeah, let me know what you think.
Low expectations. Uh, a part of it is I see where it could be good because having expectations from someone, and if they don't meet you, you're actually going to be the one who's unsatisfied and unhappy.
Exactly. Yep.
But then a part of the other part is expectations are important in life
Hmm.
and even in business.
Hmm.
And um, if you want to carry on a successful podcast, if you want to carry on a successful relationship, if you want to carry on, um, let's say you're an entrepreneur and you have to have expectations.
Yep.
So I think I wouldn't necessarily disagree with him, but
Hmm.
I believe that expectations are part of the human connection. And um, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. So it sounds like you kind of like half agree and half disagree.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I kind of feel the same way. I definitely agree more. So I do think that when you have lower expectations, then you tend to get disappointed less. And I think that's really where he's coming from. But at the same time, you have to have some expectations, right? Like they can't just be like someone who just doesn't do anything for you and who cheats on you and who abuses you. So I definitely agree. But I do think that most people tend to have like ridiculously high expectations nowadays. So let's move on to one of your questions, which I wrote down. What does it actually mean to have a relationship with your body?
Yeah, I love that question, and I'm going to answer it with uh, pure authenticity. Having a relationship with your body goes back to let's just understand that the body is always going to tell you when something doesn't feel right. All
Hmm.
right. So learning how to listen and lean in to what your body feels, not what your mind is thinking, but what your body feels, and deciding what you want to do, is about building trust within your body, right? And so the more trust that you build with your body, that's when you start to nurture the relationship that you have with your body. So I'll give you back the example of confusion,
Hmm.
which I have found myself recently, with someone that I was sort of seeing, right? A
Hmm.
situationship.
Hmm.
Um, I my body from the get-go was tight. Like my body was Like I noticed that when I was in the beginning of me exploring him and exploring our this connection with him, I noticed that I was a lot more free. I felt like more free. I felt more, you know,
Comfortable.
yeah. And then there was a point where I started to realize, like, hey, like I'm willing to be in a committed relationship with you.
Hmm.
Are you willing to do that with me?
Hmm.
And he wasn't ready, right? And it goes back to my responsibility of I chose to I chose to give him another chance, but his actions were telling me, and my body started to feel stiff around him. Like I
Hmm.
started to notice that like when he was around me, like I felt like like my body didn't feel safe with him,
Interesting. Uh-huh.
and it was because he was not he wasn't really providing that sort of safety for both of us to explore the connection. He was holding himself back, right? He was like, like if I could give you the best example, he was like this. So that mirrored back to me being like that. Does that make sense? And instead of listening to my body, I chose to give this person another chance. So having a relationship with your body is essentially learning how to trust your body more. When something doesn't feel right, and it takes time to build that. When something doesn't feel right, start to explore that and then find ways to start listening to your body more. Another thing is, let's say you're working out at the gym and you something is hurting. Listening to your body and building that relationship with your body is, I'm going to not go to the gym for a couple of days, and I'm choosing to honor my body. Um, that will start building that relationship with the body.
Do you think that the body is ever wrong?
No.
Interesting.
And I'll explain this to you, right? Um, so something I'm very fascinated with is how when you right now your heart is beating, right?
Sure.
Let me ask you a question. How do you feel right now when with me?
I feel comfortable.
You feel comfortable?
Yeah.
Okay, so what would be a sign that your body is saying Chris feels comfortable around Z?
A lack of anxiety.
Okay, so if I was to say a lack of anxiety, how would that feel in your body? Like, is it, do you feel like you're more, like your posture is more relaxed? You're not having to, like, what exactly would it be? Like, what are the signals that your body tells you that you feel comfortable around me?
Um, yeah, just I don't really know how to explain it, but I think
Okay.
it's more like a lack of
Mhm.
like a lack just like ease. Like I don't know how to explain it. Just a lack of tightness, I guess.
Okay, beautiful.
A looseness, I guess.
Okay, yeah, yeah, beautiful, beautiful. So you mentioned lack of anxiety, looseness, no tightness, beautiful, right?
Sure, sure.
Well, because I feel that way in my body right now
Hmm.
and how I'm carrying myself, perhaps this is online, right? Um, we're short of sharing our frequency here. Our nervous system is relating, right?
Hmm.
Whether if I was like this and I was like, your brain is going to automatically scan for signs of danger, right? You're studying it to be a therapist. It's called neuroception, right?
Hmm.
So, you know, because we are at the end of the days, we think with our minds, but really our bodies are automatically already assigning cues of danger automatically without us even knowing through neuroception. And whatever unconscious data goes into us, that's how we're going to respond. So it's like when you, for instance, what you mentioned, when you go and you see a woman, right? And she's like scared and afraid. And what is that going to make? How is that going to make you feel? You're going to be a little bit more resistant. You're going to have to be a little bit more careful. So like, you see your body is going to respond automatically, and then you're gonna start having those thoughts. Is she like
Hmm.
scared of me, or is she,
Hmm.
but your body's going through that. So that's why I truly believe that the body never lies. How would we communicate without language?
Um, with our hands or faces. I don't know.
Beautiful. We would
Um,
communicate with our hands. We would communicate with our faces. We would communicate with our senses.
hmm.
We would communicate, like, think of babies, right? When a baby is born, their language isn't really introduced. They go based off the face of the mother, the
Hmm.
reflections of,
Yeah.
hi, baby.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or the baby's like touch, touch and all of this, right?
Uh-huh.
That's if we were to say that's the first language we know is through the body. So what happens is that we start building narratives, experiences, a lot of shit that we start, like social media, culture influences us, and then we create this narrow story narrative in our heads. And then we start to disconnect from the body. And then we start going into our minds and we start thinking, oh, this, I should do this. No, no. But your body, because you're so disconnected from your body, you start to not trust your body. So it's an experiment that I invite anyone who's listening to this, or even you, like whenever you find yourself in a situation, perhaps with someone or you're dating or you're going to come up with a decision, get out of your mind first and just scan how your body feels. If it's a little weird because we're not used to it,
Hmm.
but you'll realize that your body will always guide you back to the right answer.
Yeah, it's so interesting because there are a lot of people, especially men, who are really, really bad at like they're not in touch with their body. Like they're not in touch with what their body's trying to say or what their gut is trying to say. So it's really important to like it's actually called alexithymia, and it's really important to like get it to know what we feel physiologically in our chest, in our gut. You know, that tightness. We should always listen to it and always analyze it. There were a few other questions that you wrote that I thought were really interesting. Here's a good one. Why do women chase people who don't choose them?
Yeah, I love that question because I can answer that from my own experience.
Hmm.
And the reason why we chase people who do not choose us is because we have learned to define love. First, it comes down to how we have defined love through our childhood experiences. So, if you were a woman, in my case, who I always only provided care, right? From my father was always providing resources. But love is not just care. Love is affection. Love is communication. Love is, but my father was never really communicative with me at a young age.
Hmm.
And then my mom was super, super, let's just say, she didn't really have patience with me.
Hmm.
Um, so I found myself a lot of lacking that sort of love, of lacking that commitment, communication. I was only provided with care and the resources. And not to say that my parents are bad, but they only knew what they gave me. My father came here at the age of 15. He was an immigrant. He was a little boy. His parents were not here. My mother, was raised here, but was highly abused by her own mother, and attempted suicide, So,
Really?
yeah, so these parents then have children, and so their only way of showing love is through care and resources and whatever they were taught. There were children raising children, and so the question is, why do we chase what, people who don't chase us? Well, it leads back to how we were loved, and so there comes a point where you then start to ask yourself, is this actually helping me? Is this actually making me feel good? Is this actually allowing me to not abandon myself? Like, how
Hmm.
does that feel? How does it feel in my body when I have to chase for someone to love me? It's so exhausting and tiring, right?
Yeah.
So we essentially start to chase love, because we either lacked it when we were younger, and we have confused the way we define love. And we believe that love is a feeling. Oh, this person makes me feel this way. But love is not just a feeling, it's a verb, it's an action. And so, um, and so part of that is we had to learn at a very young age that love was something that we had to, run and chase after, but it's really not.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing is that one reason why women choose men that don't choose them is because maybe they didn't receive much love as a child, so that they learned that love is often neglect. Like they associate love with neglect.
and
So
not
some
and not being chosen and not being seen and not being like, there were moments in my life, in my childhood, where I wish that dad took the time to tell me, hey, you're very pretty, and you're a very smart girl. Let me go back to what I just said. Let me rephrase my language because I'm just learning how I never really liked being told I was pretty.
when you
Um,
were younger, you mean, or now?
yes, yes, yes. And you saw my brain just unconsciously went there. Um,
Mhm.
how many times did I wish that dad and mom were there to, help me with my homework, assist me with my homework. Take
Mhm.
the time to, oh, you don't understand this problem. Let me help you. And
Mhm.
versus I would needed help for my homework. And when I had to go and approach my dad or my mom, they would help me, but then it would lash into frustration. You don't get this right. Why don't you do this? Or
Yeah.
listen more, listen more. So all of these, as little kids, we start to confuse it because they're our parents and because they're the ones who are giving us care, our caregivers. We start to define love as that, you know and so what happens is, as we start to get older, we start to choose partners who start giving us that type of love that we are so familiar with. But it's a matter of reconditioning and redefining what love is, because love is not that. It's like I said, it's a commitment, it's respect, it's communication, it's patience. I hope that answered your question.
No, no, it does, and it makes perfect sense. So, for example, there's this statistic that most women who decide to stay with men who physically abuse them were physically abused as children. So it's all about like what we grew up with and what we associate love with, and it must be really hard to decondition and to change your perspective on love. That must be extremely tedious and difficult.
Especially if you went through a very traumatic experience. And that's why I love to work with people who've gone through trauma. Like, I'm not a licensed therapist, but I've studied and I integrate somatic therapy, because I truly believe that trauma it happened already. I'm sorry, it happened in the past. It's not right now. And what happens is that when we experience trauma, we're living in the past and the body gets dysregulated. And this is why I'm so fascinated with the body, because when we experience trauma, we disconnect from our body. We go straight into our head. We start overthinking. We start thinking, and we completely feel numbness. We can either withdraw from relationships, shut down, or be super hyper vigilant. Why is this person not texting me? Or why is it so? There's many behaviors that come from trauma. People who have probably been physically abused traumatically are afraid to even enter a relationship, right?
Yeah.
Because the body is what gets dysregulated. The body is what contracts, doesn't trust, and all of this. But the beautiful thing about it is that we can restart working again, reprogramming the body to start feeling comfortable. And that's why I love somatic therapy, because um, somatic therapy uh, believes more in, let's start to work with the body. Let's start to help this person regulate their anxiety, help to connect back to their bodies, and not just the head, because the body's going to tell me, um, how that person feels.
Right. Yeah. So what I'm hearing is that the body and mind are very strongly connected, which is so true. If your body is not in tune with your mind, then you're going to feel this sort of like dissonance, right? Like you have to somehow find a way, and it could take years to align your mind with your body, which could take a long time. Do
The
you have
mind,
time for more questions or?
yeah, the let me just go back to what you said.
Sure, sure.
The mind and the body are connected.
Hmm.
The body's going to reflect more than what the body's going to reflect what the person keeps quiet. The body's going to reflect what the person chooses not to say. Versus, I'll give you an example, right? Um, you're someone that is afraid to trust. You've been through very traumatic
Yeah,
experiences,
yeah.
and all of this thing you probably were through abusive. What is that gonna? How is that gonna result in the body, right? And I think I mentioned this to you last time we talked. Your posture is gonna collapse.
Hmm.
You're gonna be more closed. You're going to be more quiet of how you. So all of these tones, all of this, your body will start to position and shape itself
Hmm.
based on the trauma that you went through.
Yeah,
You're going to, perhaps you're going to find it difficult to want to interact and to, you're probably going to isolate yourself.
there it is.
So this position of
Yeah.
not being looked at, because being looked at may seem traumatic to you, because when you were looked at, you probably went through a traumatic experience. Another experience is women who have probably been physically abused. Also, I think there was a study that said that these type of women, not a study, but this is just an effect. Women who perhaps were probably abused when they were younger, or they were objectified by their bodies, tend to choose to eat more and get fat and get overweight, because that's a defensive mechanism of like, don't look at me. I was looked at in
Yeah,
the
yeah.
I was younger. So the body will start to show what the mind is keeping quiet. So do you get where I'm coming from as far as why I liked to work with the body?
Yeah, it sort of reminds me of this woman I used to talk to, a different woman, who she was a little bit overweight, and one day we were talking and she was telling me how she didn't really want to lose weight because when she was thinner, she would receive a lot of male attention, and some of those men would, harass her and sexually harass her and go, one of them was obsessive. So it perfectly explains, one reason why she literally didn't want to lose weight.
And the body starts to do things based on what it feels safe. So when a
Mhm.
person's like this, or a
Mhm.
person like you said, like your friend said, had how she started to eat more,
Mhm.
her body was just, it just felt safe to do that, because at one point being thin wasn't safe.
Yeah, yeah.
So you see what I'm saying? Like it comes back to, and this is why I'm very interested, as like, don't come here. Let's start working with the body first.
Mhm.
Let's start working with the body. The body's what gets dysregulated. The body's what experience anxiety. The body's it's the ones that like shuts down. The body's the one that's their heart starts racing really rapidly.
Mhm.
But your mind, your thoughts are one thing, but what ends up getting affected is your body, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. Your body ends up getting tight and it's so interesting, like the way that the mind and body are just so connected. So do you have the time for more questions or?
Like one more question, that's
Sure,
fine.
sure. Let me choose my favorite one because there's a bunch. So many questions. Okay.
Two questions, two questions.
Two questions. Okay. Um, hmm. Okay. No, I'm just trying to choose my favorite one. Why do women keep trying to heal? Well, you kind of just answered this. Let me choose a different one.
Take your
Uh,
time.
hmm. Okay, this is a good one. If you had one message for every woman in the world, what would it be?
Hmm.
Hmm.
Okay, so I don't want to think so much in my head. It would be that, what I just said. Um, don't be so much in your head.
Mhm.
Don't be so much in your head. Um, and in a society that makes us feel so much in our heads, I would like to encourage women to begin to explore their bodies, to get back to their bodies, to start to start to change the way that they approached their bodies. Um, and why I want to emphasize the relationship with our bodies is it influences us a lot in our when we are comfortable in our bodies, when we are comfortable in, connecting with our bodies. And so I think that in a society where we have been conditioned to separate our minds from our bodies or to look at our bodies as just a objectifying way of like, let's just say like, how they say like women who are in their bodies or, who are comfortable in their bodies. Perhaps there's some women that enjoy, showing a little bit more skin or all of these things, right? I would say learn to lean more into your body because your body is always going to be there to guide you.
Good answer. I love how much you thought about that answer.
Yeah.
It looked like you were thinking about that answer for a long time, which I appreciated and I didn't want to interrupt. Even though I'm not a woman, the way that if I had one message for every woman as a man, it would be to not letting your anxieties stop you from doing what you want or doing what you need. I've seen a lot of women like let anxiety stop them from, maybe a career opportunity, a financial opportunity, maybe a romantic opportunity. So from what I've seen, that's the message that I would personally give to women and even some men.
I love
Um, Thank you, thank you. So the last question is, what is the biggest misconception people have about sensuality?
that it's seductive, that it's sensuality almost seems taboo, more like, a lustful, just lustful or evil. But sensuality is actually it's a feeling, a choice. Sensuality is a choice of allowing yourself to explore your life with curiosity, with play, with joyfulness, with pleasure. And at the end of the day, I think that the more sensual you are, in this case, the more aroused you are as a woman, whether it's perhaps arousal could be like before we were talking or whatever, I woke up and I made myself coffee and I was reading a book, right, about love,
Hmm.
right? And
Hmm.
to me, that is sensuality, right? Sensuality is finding this sort of pleasure or finding pleasure in your life that's going to allow you to become more present with your body, with yourself, with what you want to do. And it's this word sensuality has been sort of like over conditioned or has sort of been misguided by saying, oh, if you're a sensual woman, you're looking for a man's validation, or you're sensual, you're perhaps a whore, or you're sensual, all of these, a lot of it has to do with, patriarchy and religion
Yeah.
and all these things.
Hmm.
But sensuality is not that. It's not seductive. Sensuality is about exploring yourself and exploring the parts of yourself, and perhaps exploring yourself is I want to read a book about something that finds me, that is ignites my curiosity, and I'm going to make myself a very nice coffee, and I'm going to read the book, and how do I feel after I read the book? So it's more like a relationship that you start building with yourself. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so sensuality is different from sexuality, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah. Sensuality isn't seductive.
Hmm.
Isn't
It's
about like the
It's
pornography.
not physical. It's not physical. That's what I'm hearing.
It's not physical, or it could be physical. Perhaps maybe you enjoy movement, you enjoy
Mhm.
dancing, you enjoy, perhaps you touching, self-touch provides so much oxytocin. So I wouldn't say that sensuality isn't physical. I just don't,
Mhm.
don't think it's seductive. It's not like I'm trying to be sensual to get someone to like me or to, do you get what I'm saying? I'm not doing it to
So,
get the
so
validation.
the way that I would reword it in my own words, tell me if I'm wrong, is sensuality does not seek external validation. Is that right?
Yes, it does not seek external validation. Instead, it chooses to look within for internal validation and for building that sort of sensory within your body again, and listening to your body, and finding ways to cultivate play and pleasure and arousal in your life.
Z, thank you so much for sharing your experiences. It was great. And thank you also for putting the therapy on hat on, for me, because that was like the first time on this podcast that anyone ever really like kind of switched roles, which was it was a really fun experience for me. So thank you for that.
Of course, thank you for sharing with me, and I hope you learned some things as we shared. As because I learned some things from you too. But I hope you learned some things as well about femininity and sensuality and the body, right?
And also just like what it feels like to be in the chair, because sometimes being in the chair can be like pretty, it can be uncomfortable. So thank you for like putting me on the spot and like switching roles for a little bit.